everybody, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. So what I have here is a Japanese style serrated knife with the serrations that go to the outside, a little bit different than what we sometimes see on some of our Western knives, or you also see this often referred to as sandwich knives. I see a lot of people call them sandwich knives when they have the outside serrations. These work really well also for my method, and what I'm going to show you here, this one is very dull. It's cutting a little bit, but as you can see, not well. And you can feel, I can feel how dull this is. It's quite dull. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you it under the scope so you can get a good look at what's going on here. And I'm going to record it on this digital scope because it has a record function. So I'm going to try that and see how if I can get you a really nice picture of what's going on, and we'll talk about this particular style of serrated knife. Since this knife was very easy to mark on both sides, I'm going to make sure we are hitting the exact scallops. It's those little micro serrations were really hard to tell where you're actually going into, but with this knife it should be pretty easy. So I am going to test these exact spots that we have on here, and we'll do the same as we did last time. We will mark them 1, 2, 3, and then see how they do on the second test. Okay, and for this test, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So we're going to work from heel to tip. 463. Okay, center. $6.79. All right, and our tip. And I'm gonna have to move my. All right, let's try that. $5.74. So we had a 463, a 679, and a 574. All right, so let's move on to sharpening. Okay, before we go on, why don't we take a look at this under the scope? So what I'm seeing here is a very clearly, severely rolled apex to the flat side. If you look up top there, you can literally see that it's that that rough foily edge up at the top. You can see it's rolled over to the flat side. And that's why this knife is so dull. So let's just keep scanning down. You can see it's, and this, I mentioned this the other day. It's very common. Sometimes it rolls to the other side. Sometimes it rolls in, but I typically see this, which is where it's rolled over really heavily to the flat side. And we got some chips here, some definite defects. There's one of my marks where we're going to hit with the best tester. But yeah, very typical rolled knife. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm getting ready to sharpen. I'm going to try and work up in this section up at the top part of the belt, just below the pulley, mostly so that you guys can see everything. I've kind of marked it so I stay in line. For those who are going to ask, because they always do, yes, the belt is going up and away. For serrated, I do not ever do them edge leading. It's always edge trailing for serrated knives. And I am working on the flat side of the knife. So this is the flat side. This is the scallop side. I am actually working on the flat side at very close to a 0 angle. So almost straight up and down. And what I want to do is I will see this little teeny tiny shiny area, which is the rolled apex that burr has rolled over on this knife. And I'm going to start pulling that back up and making a new one. All right. And it doesn't take a whole lot. to do it. And you will see it. I can't say for sure you're going to see it on camera. It's tough to capture, but basically what I'm seeing is you'll see this little shiny area starts to go away. It just kind of vanishes as that burr is pulled back up and pushed over to the other side again, creating a new burr, but also kind of removing some of the old burr in the process. And this is a A30 Trizac belt, which they tend to run somewhere around 600 to 800 grit. And I just get in here and work that flat side, just like this, until I see that little reflection coming off in each one of these scalloped areas. Someone wrote me the other day saying that they typically do multiple passes of going back and forth between the Dremel wire wheel and this, and that has worked really well for them. I usually don't do multiple. For me, it's usually one set kind of gives me what I need, but you know, it just depends. And whatever works for everyone is going to be always a little bit different. Because remember, no matter how much you copy what someone else is doing, it is always going to be somewhat different depending on, you know, how much pressure you use, the wear level of your belts and what you're using and the materials you're using. So there's always going to be some variable in there that you're never going to be able to copy everything exactly the same. You know, there's going to be that little bit of variance because we're all a little different. And, you know, depending on how hard I might push into a belt might be very different than how someone else thinks is hard pressure pushing into the sharpening belt. All right. So I've hit that whole side. All I'm going to do now is I want to hit that burr back over to the other side. So we pulled it up on the back side, which pushed it towards me. Now I'm going to hit this side with the this Dremel tool with the wire wheel and weaken that burr and push it back again to the other side. And this also kind of makes the scallop start to look real nice. And you'll see that little shiny reflected area start to come off as it gets pushed to the other side. Sometimes it flakes off a little bit. But in general, I find that's enough. Usually just the up and back pass for what I do. All right, so now we're gonna come over to the leather hone again. So again, what I'm looking for here is I will start to see the burr pulling out. You'll see a little foily metal start to come out from that scallop, but then we'll also start to see it flaking off because we've now pushed it all back to the other side. Really want to get you to see this. Try and get this as best I can in focus. All right. So you'll see if you look right in that scallop, you'll start seeing it getting shiny as that foily burr is pulled up and pulled away. And then it literally just starts flecking off into little pieces. So hopefully we're catching it. See if my iPhone's capable of catching it, but I can see all those little pieces flecking off. And then you can kind of come down here on an angle on the edge. Often will help get in there. And I basically just want to keep hitting this until I stop seeing little flecks coming off. And I know that I've knocked that burr off. The other thing you'll notice really quick too is when you start touching up here, you will feel when that burr comes off, you're gonna feel it goes instantly sharp. Like you will feel it. It's grabby, it's sharp, and it just feels totally different once that burr comes off. And that's the same for, you know, if you're doing the same thing with a regular straight edge knife. As you get that burr off completely, and that's looking pretty good to me. You know, people will ask, can you hit the other side? You can. I tend to not mess with it too much. You know, this is the process that I like. I find it makes the knife look really good. What I like to do is then I like to finish by going on a radial disc, a nice high micron one. This is 1 micron here, and just repolishing the flat side that I worked on right along that edge up top there. That's my goal. Very lightly touching it. And sometimes I will go from here back to the leather. If I see that it pulled out some burr again, I will sometimes go back and forth a couple times till I'm sure that it got it all. This time I'm hitting the front side. Not doing too much though. I don't want to remove my lineup marks, but I will sometimes hit the front with the radial disc. And this, if you're going to do this way, be very, very careful. You don't want to cut your radial discs because these are not inexpensive. And if you go blade into it, you will cut the little teeth off. All right. So that's feeling pretty good. I'm going to back out here a little. Let's do a paper cut test just so I can see how it feels compared to when I first started cutting with it. Yeah, it feels significantly improved. So now let's go back to the best tester and see what we've done. Okay, so we are back at our best tester and we're going to go from heel to tip again. And let's start with our first marked scallop. $4.59. So just a slight improvement there from $4.63. All right, so now we are on our middle mark, which before was $6.79. $2.67. Big improvement. So that looks good. All right. Our tip. $2.73 from $5.74. $2.73. Really good improvement on the two. The one only went down a little bit, but I have a feeling it's probably because I didn't completely remove some burr from there. Let's take a look at that scallop under the scope and see what the scope tells us. See if we can see something that's different with that compared to the other ones. Okay, so I think that's a little bit of a defect that's going on there. I think it's just a part that needs a little bit more grinding. So I'm going to hit that scallop again, that little section. And sometimes on serrateds, if I find it's being a little stubborn, sometimes I'll go to my paper wheel, which is a little more aggressive. So sometimes I'll run down the paper wheel and then back to the leather. And usually that does it. So let's see. Back over here. So let's get that last part. Let's start recording again. Let's see what we see now. There's our mark. There we go. Look, I'm not seeing the defect. Looks like we took it out. It looks pretty good. So let's test that again. Let's just see. I think we had just a little stubborn burr going on there, is what I think was going on. Okay, so we were 463 was the first score. 459 was the second, but we think that's an anomaly because we don't think we got all the burr off in that little scallop. And then let's see what the last one is. Whoa, 179. So I'd say we definitely got the burr off now. So you can see that came out pretty good. So there you go. There's knife number 3 to show you that, yes, you can sharpen all kinds of serrated knives. This is like I said, this is a Japanese serrated knife. A lot of us would call this a sandwich knife when the scallops go to the outside. And I just wanted to share that with you. But I think we can clearly see we're seeing a trend here that we can improve these pretty significantly.